I'm Nardo D&D, and today I have a bunch of feats that I have converted from old 4th edition D&D, the one that everyone loves so much and shows nothing but affection for, to modern 5.5e, or 1D&D, or D&D 1, or whatever else you like to call it. D&D 2024 is popular, I think. Before we get into it, I'd just like to say, if you do like the video, give it a like, it helps so much, and if you really want to see more of this content, I convert all kinds of things from older editions to modern 5th edition. I make loads of new subclasses for all of the D&D classes, including Blood Hunter, Bard, Barbarian. Those are all on the thing. There's a playlist. You can go click it. Probably at the end of the video, you can click the playlist. That'd be great. So anyway, let's get right into the feats from 4th edition. I'd like to quickly apologize if I sound a little different. I'm a bit under the weather. Yeah, I'm a bit under the weather recently. I just must have come down with something. I think my brother got me contagious with some kind of malady. But anyway, let's get into the first feat that we're going to talk about, which is called Black Arrow Style. This is a feat from 4th edition, like all of these will be, and I'm going to quickly show you what it looked like in 4th edition. I'm going to do that for all of these. So here you go. Yeah, look, it's pretty wacky. Oh my god, it's so straightforward and simple. Okay, anyway, how it looks now in the new 5.5e format is like this. Of course, ability score increase, because why would I ever make a feat that doesn't have an ability score increase? Then you get Unseen Assault. When you attack a target and are concealed from that target before making that attack, you deal an additional 1d6 sneak attack damage. If you have sneak attack dice already, this gets added to that pool for this attack. So what this implies is that you just get you get a die of sneak attack damage, which is great. The implication for if you already have sneak attack dice and this gets added to that pool, if you have like the Cutting Strike ability at this point, you'll be able to use this die in exchange for the Cutting Strike moves that you can do. So Cutting Strike lets you trade d6s for different moves that your rogue can do. So this will give you more money to spend in that as a little bit. Then the next part of this feat is Reposition. After you make a successful attack on a target while being hidden from it, and you end your turn in a location at least 15 feet away from where you started it, you may make a hide stealth check at the end of your turn to remain hidden. So what this is meant to do is to save your action economy. Even if you are a rogue and you can hide with a bonus action, this allows you to save that bonus action. Maybe you want to dash and get more distance away. Maybe you want to use the bonus action for a light attack with your off weapon or something. And this allows you to end your turn in a position where it looks like it would be able to be hidden from the creature that you're hiding from, and allow you to make that hide check, regardless of the action economy that you find yourself in at the time. So I think overall this is a fun little feat, a fun little style that will benefit the sneaky way of play and just give a little boost to damage at that nice 4th level. Also, all the feats that I'm going to be presenting here are different styles. I ran into a 4th edition book that talks about a bunch of different styles of fighting, and I have converted like 10 of those, which is most of them, into this 5th edition. So all of these feats are going to be representative of different styles of combat. So quite a martial video. The next style feat we have is Cruel Cut Style. This feat gives you an ability score increase of either your dexterity or your strength, which is very reasonable. It gives you the ability of Raking Strike. When you inflict at least 10 points of piercing or slashing damage to an enemy using a weapon attack, you may cause a Raking Strike. Creatures affected by your Raking Strike suffer your proficiency bonus of untyped damage at the end of each of your turns, until someone spends an action to tend the wound. So a Raking Strike is like you stab or you slash into the thing and then you rake it, like raking leaves on the ground, and it just causes bleeding and general ouchie to the enemy and causes a persistent wound on them. The reason it does untyped damage is I search all across different D&D things and trying to find what type of damage is bleeding, and it's just agreed upon that it's untyped in the situations that it arises in. The other feature you gain from the Cruel Cut style is Exploit Openings. When dealing slashing or piercing damage with a weapon to a creature that is not wearing metal armor and does not have a natural armor bonus, you may roll your weapon damage die twice and choose which instance to use. So this gives a benefit if you're fighting something unarmored. Being that you're using a Cruel Cut style, you want to exploit the exposed flesh and exposed skin of enemies, so it gives you a little benefit if you're fighting those things that your style benefits from fighting. I like it, I think it's goofy. Let's move on to the next one. This next feat is Harlequin style, and here it is in old 4th edition glory. Oh yeah, pretty not that consequential, I agree. In 5th edition, it looks like this now. It has the ability score increase, increasing charisma, dexterity or strength, you know, very wacky combination of ones there, you gain the ability Brash Strike. When you successfully strike a target with a weapon attack until the beginning of your next turn, or when you take damage from a melee attack, whichever comes first, you may add your charisma modifier to your armor class. You may do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per short rest. This gives those charisma characters that sometimes find themselves on the front line a way to bait their opponent into attacking them while also boosting their armor class in order to maybe take a hit or two. Or it's just a hilarious moment where they bait a man to attack them and he manages to roll a 26 with their first hit, causing them to immediately lose the bonus and then get absolutely dumpstered by the following two other Dragon Claw attacks that are coming after that one. In addition, you get Brash Assault. You may use your Charisma instead of your Dexterity to determine your initiative bonus. A lot of these 4th edition feats had funny ways of choosing what to use for your initiative bonus, which is pretty goofy, and I thought to include it in this one here. I think it fits funny in that since you're fighting in a Harlequin style kind of way, you use your force of personality in order to act more quickly or act more boldly so that you're noticed first in a manner. Well, that's all we have for Harlequin style. Moving on to the next one. We have Hunting Wolf style. This gives dexterity, strength, or wisdom as an ability score, which I think fits nicely for a wolf, being that those are the stats that wolves like to have. You gain Wolf Pack Tactics as a feature. When you deal damage to an enemy, you deal an additional 1 point of damage for each ally within 5 feet of that enemy. The damage is the same kind of damage as the attack would deal. If the attack has multiple damage types, you may choose which damage type of those for this bonus damage would be. So this encourages to hunt like a pack of wolves, where you surround your prey or opponent with your allies, and then you deal damage, whether also in the midst of the melee or from a range, whichever, with attacks or spells. So this could be a martial or a spellcasting thing. This is just a dealing damage feat. It's not more of a leaning towards a archer or a swordsman or a wizard kind of feature. You also gain Reposition the Pack. When you attack an enemy that has an ally within 5 feet of that enemy, you may use your bonus action to allow that ally to move up to 15 feet without provoking attacks of opportunity, encouraging a group-centered kind of style of play where you're helping your pack to move around and avoid deadly hits. Maybe the boss is winding up some kind of attack that your GM likes to foreshadow with a red screen on the floor, and you want to move them out of the way of that. Or maybe you just want to move them, an ally, in a better position so that they can affect your wolf pack tactics to a different enemy in the following turn, or some sort of manner that way. Anyway, this is more centered on a group style of play, and it's very helpful if you find yourself over the control of several minions or farmers that you're helping out. You just put them in melee and you deal a bit more damage against any enemies that you find yourself in. And against medium-sized enemies, the most you could ever do is 8 more damage, which is very substantial. However, it becomes more effective the larger the enemy is and the more allies you can find in order to put them into those good spots. This influences your style of play a lot if you're trying to really maximize the amount of damage you deal with Wolfpack Tactics. And I like that. I like features that really affect the way you play the game, because that's the whole point. Features are supposed to be game defining. They're supposed to be character representative. Like, why your character does this is because he's good at this feature, that this feature is part of your character, and that's what makes him him. Anyway, that's all we have for Hunting Wolf style. Next we have Binding style, and here it is in 4th edition, and I love these kinds of feats in 4th edition where it specifically shows a certain style of fighting, and this one I think is one of my favorite styles of fighting, where you hold a flail and a spear in each hand. Now here it is in 5.5e Glory. You get the ability score increase, dexterity and strength, very straightforward. It's a very martial kind of fighting style. You gain the feature Dual Strike while wielding a flail and a spear. If you make an attack with one, you may then use your bonus action to make an attack with the other. In addition, flails and spears gain reach while you wield them, so that you get that extra reach as you extend the chain of the flail or extend your arm to stab further on with the spear, holding it at a different length. This just makes flails and spears better for you, and nice to dual wield. It's very funny. You then get Dictate Mobility. If you strike and deal damage to a creature who is large or smaller with both a flail and a spear in the same turn, you may move it up to 10 feet or knock it prone. Now this is in addition to any weapon masteries you may have. Flails and spears have the weapon mastery Sap. They both have the same one. So you'll be applying disadvantage to them and knocking them prone, which is just very funny. Meaning disadvantage applying to them, meaning that they will have disadvantage on on their next attack. That's what sap does. So yeah, very funny. You'll be applying all kinds of negatives to them when you're using the flail and the spears in this tandem fashion. I just think it's a fun style, and I think more feats should focus on a very specific style of martial weapons so that people at the table will look at the person with this weird assortment of gear and ask them, why are you doing that? And when they pull out this wacky and hyper-specific benefit that they have from using these two weapons in tandem. And I like that. I really like that. All right, next one is less specific. We have Ogremight Student, which is a precursor to Ogremight Bruiser, which is just a feature that just improves upon this feature in 4th edition. Here you see the 4th edition versions of them. Very funny. And now in the 5th edition version, you only get an increase to your strength score, because this is a very strength-focused feature, and you gain the ability Cracking Strike. When you deal damage to a target using a two-handed melee weapon, you may reduce the armor class of that target by an amount equal to your strength modifier. The armor class of a creature may only be reduced in this way once until the affected target has a short rest to remedy their armor. You may do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per short rest. So it just gives you a really big swing that you can deal damage and lower the armor class of a pretty tough target. Great against earth elementals that have that big AC 17. At 4th level, you just crack into them and suddenly everyone else in the party has no trouble hitting them whatsoever. Really lay low a man in full plate by cracking it open. Really handy for those kinds of situations. Then you get Wrecking Ball. This one is pretty goofy, I think. When dealing damage with a two-handed melee weapon, if you have moved at least 10 feet in the same turn, you may add 1 point of damage for every 5 feet you have moved in that turn to the damage of the attack. The extra damage is of the same type as the weapon's damage. Now, this is pretty good. An average creature that can move 30 feet in a turn would be able to add 6 extra damage to a swing when it has that 30 feet of movement leading up to it, but that's assuming that you start 30 feet away from the creature and then have the action to attack. So that's another contemplated thing. Where this really becomes a bit broken, and you might want to like put a per short rest limiter on this as a dungeon master. That's up to you. I'm not going to, because I like the way it adds to the wanting to make the character run around a lot, and I just think that's goofy to make the character play in a different way. So the way this actually gets broken is if the character is mounted and they have a horse, and with the mounted rules, the horse can move and dash in its turn while the rider is on it. So you can move 120 feet in a go, and that would be 24 extra points of damage on a strike that would connect with them. So that's a lot of damage that it would deal. So you might want to limit this if you want it to not include mounted combat, or maybe you don't want to limit it and you just like say, yeah, go for it. That's just how it works. If you can get the full charge off every time. This doesn't give you any ways to avoid opportunity attacks, so you're still going to be running away from enemies in a manner. But yeah, it's up to you to balance this as a dungeon master in a way that would best fit your table. For me personally, I'm not going to balance it at all. I'll just add an extra dragon to the encounter and call it balanced in that sense. Next, we have Dancing Thorn style, and as you can see here in its 4th edition version, it was originally a monk specific feature, but I think that's silly, and I would like to make it a more general feature, just like all the features I'm going to eventually turn into 5th edition feats. That anyone can take it, barring prerequisites, of course, but it can suit a monk maybe a little better than it would otherwise, like a different class. So here in 5th edition, this is what it looks like. It increases your dexterity or strength score by 1 because it is a very martial thing to do. Centered Steel, you become proficient in longswords. Longswords gain the finesse weapon property and are considered simple weapons while you wield them. So the reason for these funny words is finesse allows you to use your dexterity score with a longsword. That's just for anyone. And them becoming simple weapons while you wield them is specific bonus for the monk, because if they are simple weapons, then that means they are monk weapons, which means you can use all your monk-related abilities that involve monk weapons using the longsword. That's how I want to keep you do get a benefit even if you're not a monk, but if you are a monk, you do gain an extra kind of benefit hidden in these words, as with this one. You also gain Wall of Steel. While wielding a longsword in 2 hands, you add 1 to your armor class. In addition, when you take bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, you may, as a reaction, reduce the damage taken by your proficiency bonus. This is just good for anyone if you're holding a longsword in 2 hands. Monks aren't proficient in shields, so this is just a little bit of extra AC for them to just hold the weapon. It doesn't stymie their ability to do unarmed attacks in any kind of way, because you can still just kick while holding a weapon in 2 hands, or do any other sorts of martial martial art that does not involve your hands, which there are plenty of. It also helps a monk not spend all of their ki on redirect attack or deflect attack, so that they may just use this one to just reduce the damage by parrying away the thing. And that's also just a great benefit for anyone really that wants to fight with just a longsword in two-handed. Maybe roleplay a Jedi of some kind as a fun treat. And that's all we have for Dancing Thorn style. Next we have Bloodhound style, which I think is pretty neat because I have a hound dog and he is just a goofy little guy, and this is exactly how he would tear apart a rabbit, and I will describe it to you now in the new 5th edition manner right here. So it increases your dexterity, strength, or wisdom score. Like all dog related feats, I like to include wisdom as one of the ability scores that can increase. You gain hounding pursuit. If a creature within 10 feet of you moves, you may as a reaction move with it up to your speed. This movement does not trigger attacks of opportunity, so you're able to keep up and hound the target like a dog would and move with it. You could also use this to move with a party member that is moving away so that you stay by their side like a hound would. Very funny, very goofy. I like that. Next, you also gain Harrying Strike, which I think is really good and could fit well in many combo moves with maybe a warlock or funny wizard in a sense. Let me tell you what it does. Harrying Strike. When you deal damage to a creature with a melee weapon attack, you may choose to make that attack a Harrying Strike. Creatures that are hit by a Harrying Strike suffer your proficiency bonus of untyped damage for every 5 feet they move or are moved. You may perform a number of Harrying Strikes equal to your proficiency bonus per short rest. The very key part of it is or are moved, meaning any forced movement would also trigger this damage. So a warlock with that pushing invocation on their Eldritch Blasts or any other cantrip, because it works on any cantrip now, which I think is fantastic, can push them several times. Those 10 feet are suddenly 4 points of damage at 4th level, so that could be very compounded. A wizard with like telekinesis or something pushing someone, a barbarian shoving someone off a cliff and then falling a long way, that could be tons of damage. Who can say? And it's untyped damage because it's kind of like bleeding, so bleeding is just associated with untyped damage in D&D 5e, so that's how that works. And I really like this. Might be my favorite one, I think, out of all these, the Bloodhound style feat. It just makes me think of my dog. And look at him. Look at this guy. How can you not love this guy? Yeah, what a goon. That's all we have for Bloodhound style. Next one. This next one I find incredibly goofy, and here you can see that a prerequisite for it is you have to be a halfling or some like race specific thing. Forget that. This one's too funny to not give to all the races. So here it is in 5.5e called Deft Hurler style. You gain strength or dexterity because it's a martial thing. You're just throwing stuff. That's either strength or dexterity. You have the Deft Throw feature now from taking this feat. After you make a melee attack with any melee weapon, as a bonus action, you may draw a weapon with the thrown property and make a thrown weapon attack at a target not within 5 feet of you. This range attack does not suffer disadvantage for being performed within 5 feet of a hostile creature. So what I really wanted to heavily imply with the any melee weapon is it can be a two-handed melee weapon. You could swing with a big greatsword and then quickly draw a hand axe and huck it as a bonus action to someone else, like at a distance. I just wanted to make that clear that this is not limited to someone with a one-handed weapon and nothing else in the other hand. You can just use this with any kind of melee weapon that you're holding. The other part is normally if you're using a ranged attack in melee, you will suffer disadvantage for being threatened by the hostile entity, but this feat lets you circumvent that by just not giving you the disadvantage when you're attacking them, but you are specifically not attacking the one you're in melee with this feat as a little treat. And now for the even cooler and even funner part of this feat, you gain the feature Reactive Hurl. As part of rolling initiative, you may perform a free weapon attack with a thrown weapon. I think that's amazing. You just roll initiative, the DM tells you, and you can just say, as part of my initiative, I'm hucking a javelin at that guy's horse or into that guy's shield as a little disabling move, as a funny joke. And I think more things should happen on initiative counts because they're just goofy and cause nice bit of stall when saying who has what on their initiative, and they say this happens on my initiative. I think that's a fun time to annoy everyone at the table. But in all honesty, I think it's just a goofy little thing. It's like, oh, I throw a thing, because most of the time players want to say I immediately throw a thing when like combat starts. It's like you can do it on your turn. You don't have it, like it's not a thing they can do. It's part what initiative is. So this lets them actually get away with that kind of thing, which is nice and something that players often want to do anyway. Moving on. Next we have Impending Doom style, which for a name with such gravitas as that, the effect in 4th edition really did not live up to my expectations when I read the effect, which just subtracts some stuff from their hitting, which I think was lame, so I just completely changed it and just kept the name. So in now modern 5.5 D&D 1 2024, it gives you an ability score increase of whatever you want because it has such a cool name. I decided that just increase one ability score by one. Whichever one you want. You gain inexorable pressure as a feature of this feat. When you attack a target with a damaging ability, you add 1 to the damage roll for every previous time you damaged this same target in the last 10 minutes, up to a maximum equal to your total class levels. So what this implies is you are raining down hits on the same guy over and over again, and they are just adding up in the damage, and you're dealing more and more damage. This would be great on a monk that has like flurry of blows that is just punching several times and adding on to the damage. This would be great for like a ranged person that is just raining arrows on the same guy, really putting on the pressure, and it's just an extra bit of damage that keeps mounting up. And the next one is pretty spooky. This next feature you gain from this feat. You gain inevitability. When you roll initiative, you may choose to activate inevitability, targeting up to your proficiency bonus number of creatures. Creatures targeted by inevitability lose your proficiency bonus of maximum hit points on initiative count 20 until they are out of line of sight. You may use inevitability your proficiency bonus number of times per long rest. So what this does is it puts a timer on the enemy when you start your initiative. When you roll initiative and go into combat with them. You choose guys and their health starts to drain as you maintain this line of sight on them, as you maintain your eye contact and pressure. Your sheer magnitude of presence is just worrying them, and their ability to maintain their health and morale starts to drain and drain. Or they can just get rid of this by knocking you unconscious, because then you will not have line of sight with them and the effect will no longer happen. Or they can just hide behind a wall as well, and that would stop the effect from happening as well. So there's that. But reducing maximum hit points could mean also nothing, because if you deal damage to them and their hit point maximum goes down and they don't have a way to heal, then that doesn't really accomplish anything for the fight. Like if you do this to like 3 ogres as they're attacking you, that's not going to progress the fight in any real way. So it sounds a lot scarier than it actually is, but it also just lends an air of fun to the encounter, where it has your character feel like they have the character at the table has a air of magnitude or gravitas that like presents them with an aura of draining. So it could be pretty spooky in that sense. And that is the last feature I have converted, the last feat I have converted from 4th edition into this funny new edition that we all play. I'd like to thank all you guys for stopping by and watching this funny little video. I really appreciate any of you guys that say anything in the comments about which feats you liked and what you liked about the video and what you think of my dog, you know, those kinds of things. I love reading about all those kinds of stuff down there. Give a like if you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more. That's always important. I have a PDF version of all these feats listed for your viewing and browsing pleasure, found in the description. Go and click that. While you're there, you can check out some playlists I have down there of different classes, subclasses that I've made for the different classes of this funny little video game that isn't a video game, it's tabletop role-playing game that we all play. So go and check those out. Let me know what you want to see next. If you want to see more converted old spells or features, or maybe more subclasses, maybe something new that I just like make up. If you're interested in that kind of thing, just see what I can do when I'm just freely creative instead of just converting old stuff, you know, that kind of thing would be fine as well. I'm up for making those kinds of things. Thank you all for stopping by, and don't put tomatoes in your fruit salad. That would be too funny.